So having you rockin' tonight. Yeah, cool.
Have you heard the news? There's good rockin' tonight. Have you heard the news? There's good rockin' tonight. I'm gonna hold my baby as tight as I can, 'cause tonight she'll know I'm a mighty, mighty man. I heard the news. There's good rockin' tonight. I said, meet me in a hurry behind the barn. Won't you be afraid of I won't do you no harm. I want you to bring along my rocking shoes, 'cause tonight I'm gonna rock away all my blues. I heard the news, it's good rocking tonight. Man.
But got it there.
I think I was rustier.
Nah, it's cool. Hello, YouTubers. Today we have a very special guest. We have brilliant singer-songwriter David Cosma. Melbourne born and bred.
Yep.
You only live down the road from me, actually.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
So
We're Paisani. We're Paisani.
We're Paisana. David Cosma is actually a bandmate of mine. Well, he was part of hiring me, so I've been employed by him for a long time in sunrising the songs that made Memphis.
Blue moon, he's shining bright. Blue moon, keep on shining bright. You're gonna bring me back my baby tonight. Blue moon, he's shining bright. Well, I said blue moon, I've Kentucky.
So he's the co-producer of that wonderful band. You guys have seen bits and pieces of that. But Dave is a very, very passionate lover of Elvis, everything Elvis. He's one of those crazies that's probably going to move to Memphis one day and have all the memorabilia and stuff. You know, there's nothing wrong with having all the memorabilia in Ivanhoe.
No, that's right.
And of course, we're going to play Baby Let's Play House at the end, so make sure you stick around for that, or check it out in the chapters below. Also, if you want to check out Dave's music, I'm going to put the link below. Definitely check it out. It's all quality stuff.
Thank you,
I've
mate.
even recorded on some of that stuff,
You've performed on a lot of it.
Yeah, great. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Just a little, quick introduction.
Sure. So, as you mentioned, born and bred in Melbourne, and music's been part of my life since I was a kid. I'm a singer-songwriter and have been doing that for, most part of my adult life.
Straight to the point and solve it right. The only way to carry on. The only way to carry on.
And yeah, so I record and release and perform my own original music. And as you mentioned, I co-wrote and produced and perform in Sunrising the Songs That Made Memphis, which I think we're in about our 11th or 12th year, of which you've been a part of for most of that.
10 of it, yeah.
Most of that journey. So yeah, just really passionate about, my own songwriting, and and very much into the genre of 1950s rock and roll, rockabilly, of which, you know, Elvis was a big part of that. And I find myself here with you today to talk about it.
Yeah, well, I know we came up with a bit of a list, but I just realised the thing that would probably make the most sense is tell us about your journey with Elvis and how influential he was to your guitar playing. But before we go any further, we better explain this whole upside down guitar thing. Do you want to just give?
So yeah, it's a little bit unusual, but not that uncommon. I sort of taught myself to play the guitar, as you can see, incorrectly. There was a guitar floating around my house as I was growing up. My older brothers both sort of dabbled. And I picked up the guitar and held it that way. And I mainly held it this way because I was, apart from being a big Elvis fan, I'm a big Beatles fan. And I noticed on the posters I had on my wall of the Beatles that Paul McCartney held his guitar left-handed, even though it was a bass guitar. I didn't know the difference as a kid. So I thought, oh, I'll hold it that way too. Not realising that it had a serious consequence in doing so. So yeah, it sort of fell that way, and I do distinctly remember the guitar that I learnt on didn't even have all the strings, but it had for me the low E string, and from that I sort of taught myself some very basic melodies by accident, really. 1-4-5 stuff, which, you know, as you know, is the cornerstone of most rock and roll country music.
Show us how that.
So it was literally those three notes, and from those three notes I was able to play, as I say, a lot of those songs, albeit in that one key. And as I sort of developed that, I taught myself, I didn't realise at the time, an E, well, I guess an extension of those three notes. An E chord, or the way I played it, was like this: an E chord, an A chord, and a B chord. So those three chords became, again, the 1-4-5.
It's the staple of rock and roll, staple of
I
rockabilly.
could play every song that I loved, and I thought, that's it, I'm there. But then when I realised what I'd actually taught myself, it expanded. I remember receiving a guitar songbook for Christmas, and in the back of the book it had the chord charts, and I was able to sort of flip them upside down and teach myself G and D and the proper A and proper B and C and F.
You must have been obsessed to some degree, which I still think is the biggest part of learning. If you're not somewhat obsessed, it's going to be uphill, you know.
Absolutely, and it become my thing. It become my signature thing, playing that way, and it adds to my sound because I'm strumming. You know, my down strum would be an up strum for a normal guitar playing person. So yeah, it sort of limited me over the years, but I think my limitations have been more due to my laziness more than anything, because there are some incredible players that play this way. You know, got Albert King over the years.
Hendrix.
Well, Hendrix played a right-hand guitar upside down, but it was always strung as a left-handed. So people will actually say, "Oh, you play like Hendrix," when in fact I don't. All of his right-hand guitars were strung as a proper left-handed, whereas I just play right-hand strung guitars.
What about Kurt Cobain, Nirvana, getting same deal?
Dick Dale, Albert King, the great Elizabeth Cotton,
of course,
Eric Gales, who's probably the modern day. Yeah, she was amazing.
Love a bit of Elizabeth. Yeah, but she plays very different though. Yeah,
she does. And Eric Gales is probably a really great modern example of someone who just can absolutely rip it up playing upside down. He's just incredible. So that's just how I taught myself.
Yeah, right. And in terms of Elvis, you've got a great story of some of your first experiences learning by watching Elvis.
Yeah, 100%.
What was that? What was the riff? Was it Baby What You Want Me to Do? Can you show us how you figured that out by watching the TV?
100%. So again, being obsessed with Elvis as a kid, I saw the '68 comeback special. So I reckon I was maybe 9 or 10 years old. And anyone who's seen the comeback special, you see Elvis playing the guitar on the little square stage with a couple of guys around him, and he's playing the electric guitar, and that song "Baby What You Want Me to Do" is just he's playing.
Yeah,
So that's a
nice.
very quick bastardized version of it. But that riff and him playing that riff and me watching him and teaching myself that, I mean, again, it's such an easy thing to learn, even for those who don't play guitar. And as a kid, you know, you're playing that sort of note with that bass note accompaniment. It just blew my mind. So, and that was kind of as good as Elvis got on guitar. And you know, I guess we'll talk about that a little bit. But watching him play that in the '68 comeback special and then being able to mimic it was 100% one of the most inspiring things as a kid.
It would have been
Just playing that riff and singing also, singing that song. And I was able to sing that song with my brother and do harmonies, and it just totally inspired me to want to play guitar and to sing. So yeah, that one song and that one performance was a major. And I mean, that whole '68 comeback special, it's very much E, A, and B orientated. All the songs that they played during that special was pretty much in that key. So I was able to sit there and just play along and be inspired.
Yeah, nice. Well, that's awesome.
You got me doing what you want me. Baby, what do you want me to do?
The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about was, as someone who spent so much time listening to Elvis, studying Elvis, and playing his guitar style. I mean, especially in the Sun Records show, you're always strumming away.
Yeah.
What's your take on Elvis as a guitar player?
His guitar playing was extremely important to the Sun Records recordings. I mean, it was a third of, well, including his voice, it was a quarter of the sound.
Yeah, actually, I never thought of it like that.
So it was really, really important. You had him on acoustic guitar and obviously singing. You had Scotty on electric guitar and Bill Black on the double bass. And so his guitar playing was the cornerstone of that sound. So anything you hear from Sun Records, it's really driven by Elvis's rhythmic guitar playing.
Yeah, it's an integral part.
It's an integral part. It's not technically advanced. It wasn't incredible playing, but it was really, really important to that sound. So in terms of, was he technically a good guitarist? Was he, you know, an incredible shredder? Was he incredibly gifted on the guitar? The answer is really no. And an important fact that people don't realise is, although his guitar playing and that sound was really important to the Sun Records years, it never went beyond that. When he left Sun Records, which, you know, he only recorded there for a couple of years, as much as those recordings built the foundation of his career, when he left Sun Records and went to RCA, and for the rest of his career he was a singer. He never sat in front of the microphone. You know, he may have done it in a couple of early RCA things, but beyond that, he stood in front of that microphone and sang. Whereas Sun Records, it was about capturing his vocal and his guitar playing.
Yeah.
And beyond Sun Records, his guitar playing never featured.
No, and what the function of his guitar playing when he did play, you know, it's sort of questionable. I mean, we see footage, I think you see some footage where he's playing that Gretsch, but, you know, was it a big part of the recording? Were they mixing it down? Were they bringing it up? You know, where was it in importance? Probably not.
Yeah, not at all.
Not like the Sun sound.
No,
example.
as soon as he left Sun and went to RCA, he was a singer. They put him in front of the microphone to sing. The next, you know, you saw him with a guitar around his neck in the odd movie as a prop. It wasn't until the '68 comeback special, so more than 10 years after Sun Records, that he actually sat down with a guitar and played it, which was really just for that special, that '68 comeback special.
Yep.
And then his years on stage with the jumpsuit, you know, he'd walk out on stage, they'd hang a guitar over his neck as a prop for the first song, and he'd strum it, and then they'd take it off. So his guitar playing was a major part of Sun Records and that sound, but that's where it started and ended, really.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, we didn't really see him feature with it until the '68 comeback special, did we?
Yeah, not at all.
Before, I want to talk briefly about the comeback special, but are there any techniques you think that need to be mentioned with Elvis's playing, or even just a general overview of what he kind of did in that crucial Sun period? Is there anything you can tell us
Well, I
about
think
that?
first and foremost, Elvis saw himself as a singer. I think that's what he did, and, you know, early on he was inspired by, you know, watching people like Bill Monroe and these guys that, you know, Hank Williams, that they sang and they played guitar. So he was inspired to sing and play guitar, and I think his guitar playing naturally followed his vocal, and I think his focus was to sing, and you know, he found this natural rhythmic guitar playing that accompanied his vocal more than anything.
What does that look like for the viewers? Do you want to just... I know it's probably not super complicated, but what does that look like on the actual
well,
guitar?
not in the right key because I can't sing as high as him, but you know, like his debut single, That's Alright Mama, was, well, that's alright Mama, that's alright for you, that's alright Mama, now just any way you do, but that's alright, that's alright, that's alright now Mama, any way you do. And I mean, his guitar playing was all major chords. I've never seen Elvis play a bar chord. It's all there.
Yeah.
And it's just up and down the whole way.
Cowboy chords, which I was explaining that to you last week. I actually just to go off the track a little bit. Yeah. So I had a comment last week that was really quite interesting. Talking about more technical stuff as I do on this channel, I had a comment where the person was quite a little bit offended, I think, that they felt, well, they can't play rockabilly because they can't do those more complex things. But this interestingly highlights the importance of even just being able to play cowboy chords. Having that acoustic guitar driving a rockabilly band couldn't be more authentic. It's actually really important.
It was all about that.
Yeah,
100%.
So keep that in mind if you aren't the greatest, you know, if you feel like you're not the greatest player and you struggle with the harder stuff.
That's me.
He's better than he lets on, don't worry. But it's an important part. It's a really important part of the sound. So
100%.
We're going to play a song very shortly. The last thing I wanted to ask you was, well, how influential was 68 Comeback Special, and how good was it? And I mean, for me, that's where you see Elvis actually shred a little bit.
Well, exactly. And I mean, Baby, What You Want Me to Do, where he's doing that, you never saw him do that. It was all, you know, again, early RCA, early Sun Record stuff. It was all about thrashing the guitar with chords.
Yeah.
The only time you ever saw him do anything else was really in that Comeback Special. You know, he played that.
And he does a few little licks in between too. In his Elvis-y kind of
not
rough
quite
way.
as good as that, but
no, it was probably about like that.
I mean, look, the beautiful thing of the 68 Comeback Special that people, you know, the people that may not be big Elvis fans don't realise is that, you know, he did Sun Records. He then went to RCA in 1956 and became even more famous. But by 1958, he was making movies, and for the next 10 years, he didn't perform live. Every song that he recorded was on the back of a soundtrack and was, you know, not his best work. So when he came out of the other end of that in 1968, that moment of him doing the Comeback Special, and there's various, you know, parts that make up the Comeback Special, but him actually sitting down with a guitar, you know, with Scotty Moore on the stage with him, DJ Fontana, Bill Black had passed away by that stage, you know, had these guys around him that brought him back to his roots. It was a critically important part of his life in terms of he almost reinvented himself by going back to his roots.
Yeah.
And I feel that since Sun Records, it wasn't until that year 1968 that he produced his best work by going back into the studio with the Memphis Wrecking Crew and doing, you know, the Suspicious Minds in the Ghetto, Kentucky Rain sessions, which I think were his most fruitful, you know, recordings since Sun Records, his most influential stuff. So it was a critically important year, and that 68 Comeback Special was really important for him and his confidence to get him back on track.
Yeah, it's sort of, he just reconnected with music, even though the music they were doing in those later years was different.
Yep.
It was, you could feel the passion and the energy. There was that reconnection.
And within a year of the 68 Comeback Special, he was on the stage with his jumpsuits essentially, and did that until 77, until he passed away. So yeah, very important little transitional year that was.
Yeah, really, really huge. Well, I think we've heard a lot of great stuff about Elvis, that this guy knows it all. He's really well researched and knows his stuff. That's why I thought it would be good to have him in. But one of the great things is Dave's a great singer and awesome musician. We're going to do one of the songs that we do in Sun Rising, the songs that made Memphis. So let's do Baby Let's Play House.
Baby, let's play house. Let's
all
do
right.
it. Shall we?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Oh, baby, baby. baby, 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 come back, baby. I wanna play house with you. Well, you may go to college, may go to school. You may have a pink Cadillac, but don't you be nobody's fool. Now, baby, come back, baby, gone. Come back, baby, gone. Come back, baby, I wanna play house with you. Well, this I'll tell you, baby, what I'm talking about. Come on back to me, little girl, so we can play some house. Now, baby, come back, baby, gone. I said come back, baby, gone. Come back, baby, I wanna play house with you. Oh, let's play some house, baby. I'll tell you, baby, what I want you to know. Come on back and let's play a little house so we can act like we did before. Now, baby, come back, baby, gone. I said come back, my baby, gone. Come back, baby, I wanna play house with you. Oh, hit it! Baby, try to understand. I'd rather see you dead, little girl, than to be with another man. Well, baby, come back, baby, gone. Said come back, baby, gone. Come back, baby, I wanna play house with you. Baby, 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 come back, baby, I wanna play house with you.
Awesome, Dave. Thanks for coming in, man.
Thanks for having me, mate. Thanks for watching.
See you guys in the next video.